Brother, honestly, I can do many things.
All right. So, as you all know, that Islam Makhachev versus Ian Garry is supposed to happen in a couple of hours, unless something terrible happens and the fight falls through, which God forbid. But I mean, if it happens, it happens. But hopefully, it does not, and the fight happens. So, trust me when I tell you this. Do not be surprised if Ian Garry manages to pull this one off against Islam. Do not be surprised for even a second. No, obviously, like it really depends on how Ian Gary pulls this one off. Like if he just takes Islam down and grapple fucks him and submits him, I mean, yeah, for sure. Yeah, be surprised because that is gonna be very, very surprising. I do not expect that to happen at all. But besides that, Ian Gary does have a very good chance to beat Islam. Like he has a very real path to victory. Like he absolutely can win this fight. Absolutely. Because Islam, as good of a fighter he is gonna be running into issues and challenges that he has never run before, in his whole UFC career. Now, Islam Makhachev, in my opinion, is probably the best fighter of all time. When it comes to his skills, like he's probably the most well-rounded fighter. Like if you look at how great he is at pretty much every skill of fighting, like his boxing, like he outboxed Dustin Poirier straight up. His striking, like he's gone up against some of the best strikers in the sport, like Volkanovski, Oliveira. Like he's so good on the feet, so fucking good. Like his boxing, his kicking game, his clinch game, like he's so complete on the feet. And I mean, that is not even the best aspect of his game. His grappling is second to none. Like he's probably the best grappler we've ever seen in the sport. Probably, right? I mean, if you look at all the layers that he has to his game, I mean, who has more layers to his game than Islam does when it comes to grappling? Like, he is so good with his wrestling, with his doubles, his singles, and on top of that, he's so good at getting takedowns from the clinch, tripping people down, judo throwing them, like, so complete. And on the ground, I mean, he's pretty much just the best. I mean, his control, his submission ability, like he's second to none once the fight hits the mat. Like he is probably as good as it gets on the ground. And yeah, I mean, all of those skills combined. I mean, who is more skilled than Islam Makhachev that we have ever seen in sport? But, but with that being said, Islam does tend to be a bit inconsistent with his performances. What do I mean by that? I mean, sometimes he overperforms according to what is expected of him. Like, sometimes he just gives a much better performance than we expected. And sometimes he does not give as impressive of a performance. Like, he underperforms sometimes. Now, for looking at that, we're going to be looking at his fight since the Oliveira fight. Because before that, I mean, let's be honest, his best wins were what? Bobby Green, Dan Hooker. Like, not the best fighters in the world by any means. So, whatever. I mean, we're going to be looking at his elite fights, like elite wins, which starts from Charles Oliveira. So, going into the Oliveira fight, like most of the people believe that the fight was probably going to be pretty close. It's going to be very interesting. Like, both of them are going to be facing challenges that they probably haven't felt before. Like, especially Islam, who, again, like I said, his best wins were like Dan Hooker, Bobby Green, like this is, and like now he's fighting the reigning defending champion of the lightweight division, who's coming off wins over Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and finished both of them. Like it's gonna be a different level of challenge that Islam hasn't felt before. So, like people either believe that fight was gonna be very close, or some people believe that Islam was gonna be maybe just be way too much for him in the grappling. Like Oliveira is gonna, like he would not have felt that kind of top pressure before that he's gonna feel from Islam. And similarly, a lot of people believe that Oliveira is probably just going to dominate. Like he's probably gonna, fuck Islam up on the feet and on the ground. Like if Islam takes him down, like Oliveira is gonna, give him all he could handle, and he's probably gonna get submitted at some point. Or either their grappling would cancel each other out, and Oliveira is just gonna starch him on the feet. So These were the opinions going into the fight. So fight happens, and like most people believed, if Islam is gonna be dominant in the fight, it probably is gonna be from the way of his grappling. He's just gonna prove his grappling to be way too much. And what happens? They grapple, and honestly, like grappling in their fight was pretty close. Like the first grappling exchange that happened, is Oliveira went to Islam. He tried, you know, take him down with a body lock. Islam reversed him, got on top, and Oliveira was like very active from his guard. Like he's threatening with submissions. He's attacking Islam constantly, kind of stalemating Islam on the ground. And Islam really couldn't do much, you know. And I'm like, man, Oliveira is really doing things to Islam. Like Islam is not being comfortable over here. And then Oliveira attacks his legs, and Islam just gets up and just abandons the grappling. Like he just did not want to be there anymore. And I'm like, man, like if Islam cannot out grapple Oliveira like this, like what is he gonna do on the feet? Well, that was the area that he dominated Oliveira in. Like the fight was not close on the feet. Like Islam was just beating Oliveira up. Like he would find his moments to, lunge in, like, tag Oliveira up. Oliveira would try to pressure him. Islam would slip his shots and, sting him in the counters. Like Islam was having his way with Oliveira, and Oliveira really was not liking that. Like he was really getting frustrated. And then what happened? Oliveira at last, being frustrated, just tries a flying kick. I don't know what he was thinking. He probably was just way too desperate at that point. And Islam just countered him, dropped him, got on top, got an arm triangle, submitted him. Heavily overperforms according to what we expected. Like I don't think none of us expected Islam to just beat Oliveira up on the feet. Like he dominated that fight. Like very impressive performance. Afterwards he fight Volk, and I mean, as good of a fighter Volk was, I think we all expected Islam to just crush him. Like we all just expected that Islam was just gonna be way too much for him. But that was probably gonna come with the way of grappling, right? On the feet, Volk was just on a completely different level. Like this was a guy who just schooled Max Holloway over 5 rounds. Like beat the shit out of Max Holloway for 5 straight rounds. Like you understand how impressive that is? Like the consensus was like Islam is probably gonna crush Volk, but that is gonna happen from the way of grappling. On the feet, the fight is not close at all. Like Volk is gonna destroy Islam on the feet. Like yes, Islam, did outstrike Oliveira, but I mean, we were just like, oh, maybe that just probably because of the styles. Like Oliveira is not super good defensively. Islam is good defensively, and he just prepared for him great. Maybe that was a bit of an outlier. Who knows, right? But Volkanovski is gonna be on a different level. Like this is the guy who will just beat the shit out of Max Holloway for 5 rounds. Like this is gonna be a different kind of game on the feet. Fight happens. So immediately, like the fight was very, very close. Like Islam did not crush Volk by any means. His grappling was not as dominant as we expected. Like Volk actually did a very good job of defending himself when he got taken down, getting back up, and defending his takedowns in general. Like Islam really couldn't hold Volk down for long. Like Volk would be able to get back to his feet, and the only time Islam did, hold him down was when he got like a body triangle on him and just held him there for dear life. Besides that, Volk did a very good job of cancelling Islam's grappling, and like we did not expect that, right? But what happened? Where did Islam impress on that fight? He literally went tit for tat with Volk for 5 rounds. Like made a very close fight on the feet. Like this is a guy who just beat the shit out of Max Holloway for 5 rounds, and Islam is genuinely like for a good portion of that fight outstriking Volk. Like he dropped him a couple of times, stung him pretty bad. Like that was super impressive performance from Islam on the feet. Even though his overall performance might not be that impressive because we expected him to crush Volk, and the odds said that, but the way he performed on the feet against one of the best strikers in the world, was genuinely very, very impressive. So after that, he was supposed to fight Oliveira in the rematch. Oliveira pulls out. Volkanovski steps in on like 6 days' notice. But we are we all expected Islam to win, right? Because I mean, Volk is coming on short notice. Like he did not have a great time to prepare for Islam. Islam didn't have a great time for preparing for Volk either. But I mean, this is the guy. Islam is the guy with a training camp. Probably train his ass off, and Volk is pretty much coming out of shape, coming off the couch. Like this is not gonna be the best version of Volkanovski by any means. But we still expected him to, give Islam a challenge, right? Because how close was the first fight? Like we did not expect Volk was just gonna get dominated out there, right? Well, boy, were we wrong. If you thought Islam having a close match on the field with Volk was impressive, what happened in the second fight? Islam, like, as short notice as that fight was, Islam's game plan for Volk was somehow perfect. Like, what is Volk's weakness on the feet? He does not have great defense for head kicks. Like, he does get hit by head kicks. Does not do a good job defending them well. And Islam's whole game was just, he would throw body kicks and he was trying to set up the head kick. And he just knocked out Volkanovski in the first round. Like, even though we all realized that Volk's chances of winning that night were not that good, getting knocked out like that in the first round, man, we did not expect that either, right? And Islam, again, heavily overperformed according to what was expected. He just knocked out one of the best strikers in the world in the first round, regardless of how short notice the fight was, regardless of if Volk was coming off the couch or not. There are very few people on this planet that are doing that to Volkanovski on however many days' notice. Very impressive performance. After that, he's fighting Dustin Poirier, and I mean, we all thought that fight was just a layup for Islam. Like, none of us thought that Dustin Poirier had much of a chance. Like, he would probably need an upset here, right? Like, I mean, we all thought that fight was just, like a layup for Islam. Because, like, the only reason Dustin Poirier got that title shot was because, Arman Sarukian turned down the fight. If he didn't, Dustin Poirier is not getting that title shot. So we all thought, this is just a warm-up for Islam. The real challenge is gonna come with Arman Sarukian. Like, Dustin Poirier is just gonna be, alright, bro, just take this guy out. Free title defense. We all expected that. Like, Dustin Poirier, the guy was, like, pretty average grappling, to say the least. But, yeah. So we all expected Islam to just, dominate him. And, well, he didn't. I mean, even though I think like he soundly won that fight, like people think that fight was a war, like a Volkanovski first fight. It really was not. Like, Islam was in control of the fight, like pretty much the whole fight. Dustin had his moments, he did cut Islam up in the fourth round, but overall the fight was just like Islam was just controlling the fight pretty handedly, if I'm being honest. So. But the problem was Islam grappling really did not look that dominant as we expected, right? Against someone like Dustin Poirier, like he did not impress by any means with his grapplings. But to make up for that, where did he impress? Where did he shock us? So, I mean, we all knew that Islam's striking was very, very good. His overall striking was really, really good. I mean, this is a guy who just comfortably outstruck Charles Oliveira, went tit for tat with Volkanovski, a full camp Volkanovski. Like, had a very close striking match against him. And in the rematch, when Volk is coming off short notice, just head kick knocks him out in the first round. So, we're expecting that fight to be... Like, we're expecting Islam to have things for Dustin on the feet. Like, that fight was not like, Dustin is just gonna dominate Islam on the feet. Absolutely not. But what we did not expect, if Islam just abandons his whole striking game, like kicks, his knees, and just tries to box with Dustin, none of us thought that was going to be a good game plan, right? Well, he did exactly that. And guess what? He actually outboxed Dustin Poirier on the feet. He actually did that. The place where Dustin Poirier was supposed to be the best at, Islam did him there. He actually, like Dustin would throw a jab, Islam would just slip that and just counter him with like a 3-punch combination. And Dustin Poirier would get stung. Like, we did not expect that. As good as we thought Islam was on the feet, we did not think that his pure boxing ability was good enough to handle someone like Dustin Poirier, just purely boxing with him. And he did. So again, his overall performance was not as good as we expected. His grappling did not look nearly as dominant, but how he made up for that, he impressed everyone with how good his boxing was. And yeah, so after that, he fights Moicano. And I mean, he was supposed to fight Arman Sarukian, but Arman pulled out and Moicano stepped in. So that was the fight, right? And we all expected that Islam versus Moicano in the grappling is not gonna be that dominant. Like, he's probably not just gonna ragdoll Moicano and just run through him on the ground, because he really did not do that well against Dustin Poirier with his grappling. And Moicano, I mean, just a way better grappler than Dustin Poirier, so he's probably gonna have things for Islam on the ground. Like, even though he was nowhere near shape or form a better or even as close to as good of a grappler as Islam, like, he's probably gonna have some good moments defending Islam's grappling and keeping the fight on the feet. But on the feet, where we thought that Islam was just gonna have a huge advantage, like Moicano, not that great on the feet. Like, his last fight was against Benoit Saint Denis, which, I mean, he dominated the first round with his grappling, took him down, beat him up on the ground. And the second fight, like, Benoit could barely see, and Moicano pretty much got outstruck by him in the second round. Like, Benoit Saint Denis is, like, pretty much sucks on the feet, if we're being honest, and he outstruck Moicano in the second round. So we're talking about, like, Islam. We're talking about a guy who got outstruck by a blind Benoit Saint Denis versus a guy who has outboxed Dustin Poirier, who has went tit for tat with Volkanovski, knocked him out, and easily outstruck Charles Oliveira. Like, that fight should not be close on the feet. And what happens? The fight on the feet was getting pretty hairy for Islam. Like, Islam did not look comfortable on the feet at all. Like, he was honestly kind of getting outstruck. Like, Moicano's height and reach advantage was, like, really giving Islam a lot of problems. Like, he was, keep himself at distance where Islam would not be able to reach him, and he would just make Islam run into a jab. Like, Islam was not comfortable on the feet at all, and that is why he just shot the takedown, and he just ran through Moicano from there, just easily submitted him. And yeah, so, I mean, the fight where we expected his striking to look dominant, unlike any of his other fights, and his grappling to not look as dominant, there is where his grappling looks like the best in the world, and his striking looks not as dominant as we expected. Like, now you see what I mean by Islam's performances being a bit inconsistent, because, like, where we thought that he was gonna impress us, he doesn't. But where we think that he's not gonna be that good, that is where he ends up, like, impressing everyone. Like, so then he fights against JDM at welterweight, and generally, like, most of the people thought that fight was gonna be super competitive, very close. That was Islam's first fight up at welterweight. We did not know how he's gonna look up there. Is he gonna look better than before? Is he gonna look worse? Whatever. But what we did know that JDM, like, he honestly did a very good job of defending Bilal's takedowns in the last fight. His scrambling ability is super high level. Like, he legit out scrambled Gilbert Burns in moments. Like, he actually did, and, like, a lot of people don't understand how impressive that is. Gilbert Burns is a very high level grappler. Like, Hamza did not want a piece of Gilbert Burns on the ground, man. He really did not. Gilbert Burns is like an ADCC world champion. Like, he is very good on the ground. And JDM kind of out-scrambled him in that fight. Like, we all knew that his scrambling ability was very high level, paired with his takedown defense that he showed against Bilal. Like, it was gonna give Islam a pretty hard fight. And I mean, we're talking about JDM striking. Like, he is probably, like, probably like the best striker at that time that Islam had fought. I mean, it was either him or Volkanovski, but it was one of the two. Like now, obviously, a lot of people are gonna say, "Oh, JDM sucks. Volk is just gonna be way better striker than JDM." Of course, now in hindsight, people are gonna say that, but at that time, it was like this guy's probably the best striker Islam has fought. Like if you compare him with someone like Dustin Poirier, I mean, JDM honestly is like better than Dustin Poirier everywhere when it comes to like striking. Like his boxing, in my opinion, is honestly better. He can fight from both stances. His kicking game is all right. Dustin Poirier's kicking game is pretty limited. Like he just has a calf kick, if we're being honest. Besides that, his kicking game is not a lot. And I mean, JDM's boxing, like JDM's combinations are honestly much sharper than Dustin's. You know, Dustin's counters might be a bit better. Who knows in the pocket? I mean, JDM's counters look very, very good against Bilal, though. I mean, JDM can fight from both stances, unlike Dustin Poirier. Like, looking at how much trouble Islam had against Dustin Poirier, like, we all thought that, okay, that fight against JDM was going to be very, very close. And what happens? Islam just dominates the fight. Actually outstrikes JDM on the feet crazily. And completely shuts down JDM on the ground. Like JDM did not have anything for Islam on the ground, man. Anything at all. Besides just, defending the submissions. He could not get up. He did not do a good job of defending the takedowns. Islam had a perfect game plan in that fight. Like he kicked JDM's legs off. When JDM would switch stances, Islam would just, blast the high kicks on him, which would get JDM to, raise his hands up, which like opens up the takedowns on you, because I mean your hands are up, you cannot defend the takedown. Like, you're gonna get like an underhook in time to defend the takedown. And I mean the way JDM puts his high guards up, like he just kind of like blocks his vision a lot. Like he just has his hands right in front of his eyes. Like that is not good for seeing the takedowns coming. And Islam just took advantage of that. And every time JDM would just walk forward with that, Islam would just run through him with a takedown. And he would get JDM down. And now on the ground, JDM's scrambling ability really did not do him any good. Like Islam was just beating him to the scramble every single time JDM tried anything. So completely shut JDM down. So yeah, and like now you understand like what I mean by the inconsistency in his performances. And I honestly think that comes down to the fact that Islam, in my opinion, kind of looks a bit too much into the fan perception, like what people think the fight is probably gonna be. Like if people think that he's probably gonna dominate, in my opinion, he sometimes tends to not prepare for the fight as great. I'm not saying that he's probably not training hard in the training camp, but he does not have like a good specialized game plan for his opponent. But when people think the fight is gonna be tough for him, that is where he, completely, studies the opponent, studies their weaknesses, and just completely shuts them down. So now the question is, how does all that relate to his fight against Ian Garry? So we talked about how Moicano's height advantage gave Islam a pretty big problem. Islam did not look as good on the feet as he normally does, simply because all of a sudden he couldn't use his normal way of striking that he likes to scoot around on the back foot, counter his opponents, stay safe. Like he could not do that because I mean Moicano was taller than him, he was longer than him. Like he could find Islam from the range where he could hit Islam and Islam could not hit him. So Islam had to, be the one moving forward. And now in Islam's defense, he only had like a day to prepare for that fight. Like he was originally supposed to fight Arman Sarukian, and the only reason he fight Moicano was because Arman pulled out. And yeah, that was pretty much the only reason Islam fought Moicano. But we did see him struggle against someone who was finally a taller and region opponent than him. Someone he could not use his usual way of striking against. So, I mean, whatever that's worth, I mean, we will just have to wait and see. how he does against Ian Garry. Maybe we just see that that fight was an outlier. Maybe he does not struggle with rangier opponents if he has time to prepare for the fight. Who knows? We will just have to wait and see. But the truth of the matter is, Ian Garry is gonna be even taller than Moicano, way taller than Moicano, and overall just a way, way, way better striker. Like he's better than Moicano in every aspect of striking. You talk about the boxing, you talk about the kicks, talk about the footwork. Like he's completely on a different level than Moicano on the feet, and is also way taller. So that is the kind of challenge that Islam hasn't felt before, that kind of height and range. And given the fact that Islam also cannot use his usual way of striking against Ian Garry, like he has to be the one moving forward. If Islam is moving backward, I mean, he's just playing into Ian Garry's game because, again, Ian Garry can just keep him at a distance where, he can hit Islam and Islam cannot hit him. And he's just going to do that all day long. Yeah? So Islam has to be the one pressuring him, has to be the one, getting him back up to the fence. How he's gonna do that, we'll just wait and see. Is he gonna, have some way to close the distance safely? Because if he's closing the distance against, the way he was against Renato Moicano, I mean, he's probably just gonna, get jabbed up. Ian Garry is just gonna move out of harm's way. He's probably gonna attack his legs, probably, rip up some high kicks. Like, it's not gonna be that good for Islam, in my opinion. If he's just closing the distance like he was doing against Moicano, he's gonna have to do it differently. And how he's gonna do that, we really do not know. We do not have an example of that. So we'll just have to wait and see. Now, if you're talking about the grappling, Ian Garry's grappling defense, honestly, like his takedown defense looked very, very good against Bilal. Like it looked very high level. Now, obviously, I know what you're all gonna say that, we thought the same with JDM. Like JDM's grappling defense looked very good against Bilal, and we saw what Islam did to him. I mean, look, it's again at the end of the day, it's all about styles makes fights. We cannot use one fight and compare with another because I mean JDM and Ian Garry are completely different puzzles. They are not the same fighters. The thing is, Islam, Bilal, and JDM, they are pretty much about the same height. So Islam and Bilal fought JDM completely differently. Bilal was on, trying to, be very boxing heavy, trying to pressure JDM. Like he would throw a couple of kicks here and there, but for the most part, he was just being boxing heavy, which is JDM's best part of his striking, the pure boxing. JDM's probably the best there. But Bilal is trying to pressure JDM. JDM is, using head movement. Does not really need to, put his hands up because Bilal is not, attacking much on the head. Because I mean, Bilal's punches, honestly, like he does not have a lot of power. JDM does not need to put his hands up like he had to do against Islam, who was just, like threatening him with high kicks. So JDM is just, seeing the takedowns coming as Bilal is pressuring him. And honestly, because JDM is moving backwards, which means like he's not gonna be like running into takedowns. He has time to defend the takedowns. He's gonna see the takedowns coming. He's not blocking his vision with his high guard, so he does very good job of defending the takedowns. And even then, Bilal did get takedowns on JDM. Like he could not keep him down because JDM has such a good scramble ability, and obviously Bilal on the ground, with his top control is not as good as Islam. So JDM just got back up. But against Islam, he could not really, get up the same way. But Bilal did actually get takedowns on him. And even the takedown JDM defended, like Bilal actually was kind of getting to his hips, but JDM would have the underhook and he would, hike Bilal up and, it was over from there. But against Ian Garry, if you look closely, Bilal couldn't even get even close to his hips. Like Ian did a very good job of keeping his hips backwards. Like Ian would, as Bilal would shoot the takedown, Ian would just see it coming and just start defending it immediately. Like Bilal could not get anywhere close to his hips. And that's the thing. Islam is gonna have to fight Ian Garry similarly, kind of the way Bilal did. Now Islam is better than Bilal on the feet. Like he has way more weapons. He can threaten with way more things. But he is kind of have to use the same game plan that Bilal did against Ian Garry, which is to pressure him, and Ian Garry did a very good job of defending the takedowns once that was the game plan by Bilal. So if Islam is not doing a great job of closing the distance, if he's closing the distance like he was doing against Renato Moicano, and because of that he cannot set up his takedowns the same way, because Ian Garry is just gonna be jabbing him up, moving away, and if Islam is just shooting naked takedowns, I mean the way he shot against Dustin Poirier did not set them up super well. Ian Garry is gonna defend that sting. Ian Garry, in my opinion, is better than Dustin Poirier. Like he is skill for skill, he is better than Dustin Poirier while being way longer, and even skill for skill, he's a better fighter than Dustin Poirier. So Ian Garry is gonna be able to defend those takedowns, and you know, and if Islam cannot take Ian down, Ian just has an advantage on the feet. Now, if Islam just somehow impresses us that, he even just outstrikes Ian Garry, that's gonna be like crazy. But honestly, like I do expect Ian Garry to have an advantage on the feet. Like I do not see Islam, being able to outstrike Ian Garry for extended periods of time, and you know, if he cannot take Ian down, if he not able to set up his takedowns as well, if Ian's able to constantly defend his takedowns. Now I do think once Islam gets Ian down, I think Islam's gonna keep him there. I do not think Ian Garry is gonna be able to scramble up from the ground. If he does, it's gonna be impressive, honestly. But I do not. Once Islam has Ian on the ground, I think he's gonna you know be able to have his way with him there. But the problem is gonna be getting Ian to the ground. Like he is gonna have to close the distance correctly. Get to his hips, set up his takedowns well, get Ian down, and do that over 5 rounds constantly. Or if he just submits him, he can submit him. But I do expect Ian Garry to have prepared for Islam submissions, and but yeah. So I think I've laid it out pretty clearly that Islam's key to winning is gonna be his pressure. He has to pressure Ian Garry, and he has to do it the correct way. How he's gonna do that, we do not know. We haven't seen him do that yet. Now, does that mean that he cannot do it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's just an unknown, and he could be very successful pressuring Ian Garry to the fence, or he could, pressure him like he did against Renato Moicano, which is not that well, and at that point, Ian Garry is gonna be able to, get the win against Islam, and yeah. So, like I said, do not be surprised if Ian gets it done against Islam. Ian Garry has a legitimate chance to victory. Islam just will have to have a super good game plan to defeat someone like Ian Garry, and I think he's very capable of doing that. But if he's not, I think Ian Garry can take the win in this fight. So if he does end up winning, do not be surprised. Unless, of course, if Ian Garry out grapples him, that's going to be another thing. But Ian Garry does have a very good chance to win this fight.